What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on in the NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Steven Hyder here with K-City Sports Channel. And as promised, your second video tonight, guys. So, what I want to talk about real fast is I want to talk about the route combinations and the different routes that were heavily utilized underneath Doug Pederson's system. I'm going to tie it in a little bit with Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen's system in Indianapolis, and then with the Chargers to kind of mix it all up a little bit, all right? So to begin with, let's just start with like route combination kind of information here, guys, just to run through some of this stuff really fast. So on the year, if I were to ask you, what do you think was run the most in terms of the routes? Just real quick, what would you say? I'll give you a second before I give you the answer. So the answer actually was out routes and dig routes were the most run route combination underneath Doug Pederson. So that's probably not that surprising to a lot of you guys. Out routes, a little 10, 12-yard out route, a little 10, 12-yard dig route. Those we saw those a lot, man. They love throwing those to tight ends. They love throwing them to the receivers. Like, clearly those are staples of this offense, right? Going past the out routes and the dig routes, some of the other things we saw underneath kind of like Doug Pederson's scheme here was a lot of comeback and curls. Some of these are zone beaters, guys. They're just trying to, like, Doug used to mix in a lot of man beaters with zone beaters, and I think it's one of the most easiest things to incorporate into your playbook for a zone beater would be a comeback or a curl route. So that was the second most commonly run route for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then they had a lot of stuff going on here between screen passes and throwing the ball out into the flats. That was kind of their version of the sped up system for the Eagles. They did throw a lot of slant routes. So slant routes were definitely up there pretty high with the Eagles. And then you kind of get a variance of all these different types of vertical route stems that you can consider, right? So if you go with like the go routes or a fly route, which just means in a straight line. If it's a go route or fly route, but it's on the outside, then that's called a fade route. So if you take the goes and the fades and you bring those together, guys, it was 23 separate times. They ran those. Seam routes, we know what that is, guys. Seam route, 8 times that was run with actually, it's a little more than that, but with Wentz, it was 8 times, 23 times when they go and fly and fades with Wentz. And then double moves on a vertical pattern. So a double move on a vert pattern. Those occurred at least 10 times with Wentz, 4 times with Hurts. So the vertical stems were definitely kind of a part of it, with a little bit of a sped up process where they would kind of go with these screens and these passes out to the flats, those type of things. And then they mixed in a lot of like simple, easy kind of like zone beaters, some out routes, some dig routes, some comebacks, some curls. Mix those in with those slant routes, those kind of things, guys. They love running those mesh concepts, which are really just underneath drag routes. They call them a mesh concept. It's a spread offense concept. That was Doug's offense, guys. And just some of the basic numbers for you guys to kind of go over offensively to look at here. If you look at something like corner routes, drag routes, and over routes, this is something we will see in the Eagles. I want you to remember these 3 routes. Remember, you heard them from me. Corner routes, drag routes, the over route. You're going to see that a lot in Nick Sirianni's scheme. Nick Sirianni in the Colts offense with Frank Reich was the 2nd overall team in running those route combinations. Shane Steichen and the Chargers were number 5. Doug Pederson and the Philadelphia Eagles were the 31st ranked team on that. That's going to be a wrinkle that is going to be slightly different from what we've seen from Doug, right? The other thing I can tell you is changing of the guard would be out routes and dig routes. You look at the Eagles. The Eagles were the 6th overall team. There are only 5 other teams that ran more out and dig routes than the Eagles, and one of those being the Cowboys, which were number 1 in the NFL. Past that, guys, if you look at the Colts, this is why it's going to be a change. The Colts were ranked 26th. The Chargers were ranked 30th. That's going to be a changing of the guard. We're probably not going to see quite as many out. I don't think we're going to go quite that far down just because our receivers are used to running it. We have tight end play that can execute that, but I don't think you'll see it as prominent as it once was in this offense. Fade routes, go routes. These are definitely those vertical things, guys. Chargers were number 4 in the NFL. The Eagles were number 7. So both, Steichen knows how to incorporate those things. We have guys that ran that a lot with Doug Pederson, although I would argue that, I thought Jalen Hurts had a very nice touch. He's got a very, very good touch on the football for kind of that fade route action. I think he's very good at that. I don't know that our success rate was very good with that. I don't know if that's where we're going to go. The Colts, by the way, they were 31st in the league on fade and go routes. So that could be interesting because you got, on one hand, Steichen, who definitely ran it in L.A. with the Chargers. On the other hand, you got Sirianni, who did not incorporate a heavy amount of that. What did Sirianni incorporate, though? He incorporated corner, post routes, and deep crossers. Those were more of the vertical stems that he ran. Corner routes, post routes, deep crossers. Colts ranked 5th in the NFL in those route combinations. The Chargers were 6th. So you got a nice little blend, a nice little mix here coming from Steichen. He knows how to work in these vertical route concepts. Also because he's heavy play action. And then the Eagles were 26 in those. So the Eagles were more fade and go route underneath Doug Pederson, less corner, post, and deep crossers. Common, denominator here, Shane Steichen's got experience running both of those vertical route combinations. In terms of the slant routes, Doug was right in the middle of the pack, guys. He ran about 14th in the NFL in terms of the total amount of attempts from a slant route. Steichen's offense was like 19th with the Chargers. And then Sirianni and Frank Reich over there, they were 31st. They didn't run a lot of slant routes. We may not see a lot of slant routes. That part we might have to kind of get used to. And that could be factually true that we just don't see a ton of slant routes from now on. In terms of the quick kind of passing, obviously we know we're going to do a lot of corner drags and over routes is kind of the quick game. But with Doug, we saw a lot of screen passes, a lot of quick passing game stuff, and a lot of kind of check and release stuff. The Chargers were 3rd. The Chargers sped things up and they pushed vertically. The Chargers were very balanced with Justin Herbert and with that coaching staff over there. Anthony Lynn, Shane Steichen. Play selection a little off, guys, but the actual playbook in itself and the concept was good. The Colts were 8th. So the Colts would speed things up. The Eagles were 18th. Not so bad. So the one thing I can tell you is we're going to speed things up. It's going to be a fast offense where you're going to see a lot of screens, a lot of quick releases. A lot of quick route combinations, a lot of check and release routes, drags, corners, over routes, that kind of stuff. You're going to see a lot. Then I wouldn't be shocked to see less fade and less go routes and a lot more corner, post, and deep crossers in the vertical route tree. That's what I'm sensing, guys, from the route direction that we're going to take in terms of the development, the route tree. I think that's what the route tree is going to look like, guys. All right, ladies and gents, some concluding thoughts. I'm sorry. I'm hoping I get this one out to you guys on Tuesday night. If I don't, I promise you guys would have had it up and ready by 9 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, guys. I'm trying to get it to you. I'm doing my best here. But all right, my actual concluding thoughts are this, guys. So as I'm looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, right, and I'm looking at Nick Sirianni scheme coming in with Shane Steichen, with the things that these players already kind of know how to do and playing to what they're good at. I mean, look, you're going to see, I already made a video the other day where I talked about how the targets are going to change under Nick Sirianni, right? You're going to get a lot more running back targets here. But outside of just that fact, guys, I think the vertical elements are going to change, right? You'll still run some fade. You'll still run go routes. Those will still be here. But I do think we might see a changing of the guard to where you see more corner, post routes. You'll see a little bit more those deep kind of the deep middle kind of routes. I think you're going to see more of that kind of stuff, guys, like deep crossers. I think you're going to see a different type of vertical offense here, right? The short game, I think, will be more prevalent. I think you're always going to mix in zone beaters and man beaters, vertical elements with the short game. But I do think that Nick wants the quarterback to be faster. He wants a faster processing quarterback, and he's going to put a lot of the onus on himself to scheme those reads open, right? He's not going to be like Doug, where Doug had to be forced into scheming some of that stuff open. And Doug did a good job when he got forced into doing it. But I think Nick starts with that in his mind to begin with, that you've got to scheme these guys open. So where Doug ran a lot more of a lot of screens that were ineffective, I think we're going to get more effective screens coming from Nick Sirianni. Where Doug did run a lot of slants and things like that for the in-breaking routes, although I will say that the in-breaking routes were largely absent. I think you're going to see a little more over routes. You're going to see a little bit more drag routes and things like that. Doug really loved those digs and those out routes. That might be kind of backed off a little bit this year, but I still think you'll see it there just because, we got guys like Dallas Goedert and those that are big possession guys that can go make those catches. But I look forward to seeing Dallas Goedert's athleticism being unleashed and him being healthy, because I think that's going to make a big difference in this scheme too, guys. So that's kind of the way I'm envisioning this. Way more running back targets. I don't think we're going to be a heavy run team like we were in 2017 where it was almost a 50-50 mix to pass to run. But I think we're certainly going to be much more heavier run-based than we've been over the past couple of years. I definitely think you'll see a better than 60-40 ratio. My guess would be anywhere between somewhere around 45 to 55%. So 45% run, 55% pass. I'm going to guess that's about what the ratio will be here with Nick Sirianni, plus or minus 3%, guys. Obviously, I won't say plus plus or minus, let's say 1 or 2%, because if you say 3%, it's basically almost 50-50. But it's going to be in that realm. Outside of that, guys, like, yeah, time to throw is going to come down. Okay, you're going to have more yak, I think, in this offense. He's going to put a precedent on getting the ball out and getting guys into space, playmakers on favorable matchups. And I think Nick's going to want the quarterbacks to pay close attention to where the matchups are. Pre-snap, you need to know who has the matchup. You need to know what the play's calling here, what the play call is, and what the route designs are. And if you have to change your progressions up because that's where your matchup is, you change your progressions up. I think it's going to be a little difference here, right? I mean, it's not so much like maybe Carson or Jalen or a drafted player or whoever's going to be there. Maybe you're not going to have them doing so much of the, so much responsibility at the line in terms of killing the plays and all that. I mean, they might gradually walk them into that kind of responsibility, but I think they will give them leverage over like, hey, if you see the matchup, change your read to take advantage of the matchup. If you see you have a matchup, you go for it. I think that's what you're going to get from this offense, guys. All right. I will have some more videos coming to you. I have everything broken down to go over all the passing stuff to you guys, the type of defenses that were employed against us in terms of coverage. All that's coming up, guys. I have all that broken down. It's ready for you, so you'll definitely be getting that within the next 24 hours, guys. All right, Joe. Peace. I'm out of here.